Well, just in the wake of the Easter celebration, the former presidential aspirant and presiding overseer of the Lagos-based global community Citadel Church, Pastor Tunde Bakare, warned that under President Bola Tinubu, Nigeria risks a popular uprising unless the administration changes its course of security and the economy. This is in the wake of the recent or recurring killings in Plateau, Benue, and as well as Enugu State. That is the bane of our conversation today. And of course, I have joining me a former commissioner of Edo State, commissioner of information in Edo State. He is a lawyer and also the president of the African Public Interest Lawyers Union, Chief Andrew Emwanta. Good to have you join us on this episode of the podcast.
Good afternoon, Chika. It's my pleasure to be here.
Yeah, thank you. So remember, you're still on to the Leadership Dialogue podcast. I am Chikodnaga Dili. The conversation begins now. Well, Barrister Emwanta, or Chief Emwanta, like you would, don't just remind me. How's the Easter celebration for you?
I think I would say it was pleasant, and we are still having this feeling that as a country, we must get it right with security. It's brought thoughts of what had happened recently in Benue, where in a space of 48 hours, I can say over 71 persons were killed. So, I mean, for Nigerians, we have reasons not to. It's not yet Uhuru when we talk of democracy, because Section 14, Top 2 of our Constitution says the security and welfare of the people is the primary purpose of government. Even for those of us who are politicians, we are human beings. We feel the pain of the average Nigerian, particularly when people are struggling to earn a means of livelihood, and in the course of that, they get killed. I mean, every government the world over should be bothered, particularly our local government, both at the grassroots level, at the state level, and at the federal level. And I think it's a wake-up call for those of us who are interested in politics and for those of us in government.
Absolutely.
To now deal with this problem of insecurity. It was a clear and present danger. So it was not, for me, a very beautiful Easter celebration, because it was, for me, a time to reflect, a time of sober reflection.
Yeah, just like many Nigerians also were at a point, a moody point, because I think I came across one social media post of a young lady who was decrying the states of security in Benue State, for instance, like you have mentioned. But also the social media got awashed with, video clips from the popular pastor who had not once or twice tried to be president, in terms of declaring his interest to run for presidency in Nigeria. And one thing was clear. He scored the present administration zero.
I don't think I will agree with him totally. I know that the government has responded. The advisor to the to the president, to the president on policy communication, Dana Bola, my friend, has said yes, he has expressed his own personal opinion, and that it will be very difficult for him to totally, disagree with him, because there were areas where Tunde Bakare agreed that government has done well. In the area of our foreign exchange, he said, between May 2023 and November 2024, from $35 billion, our foreign reserves have increased to 40 billion, just a 5 billion increase. I mean, that was one of the credits the give to the Tinubu administration. But I think the focus of his vitriolic attack was more on the National Assembly, that we had the National Assembly that is more or less for the 7th member or for the 8th member of the president's cabinet. And I think that for me is a sweeping indictment. It's an indictment that does not tell well for a democracy like ours. Because when we talk of reduction of separation of powers, it allows parliament to stand as an independent arm or organ of government. Because when you look at the 3 governmental estates of the realm, parliament should be number 1. So when parliament now becomes subservient, I mean, it's something that Nigerians elder statesperson like Tunde Bakare should have their voice too. So I think it's for the National Assembly to be more alive to the oversight functions. And I think this present National Assembly has not done very badly, but I think it's a wake-up call for them to be more active, for them to be more proactive, not reactive, and for them to carry out their constitutional function of oversight.
But it's not surprising to you, that under the present, not just the present administration, but successive administration, but typically under the APC government, the National Assembly has not been as vibrant as we saw under the PDP administration. Is that some sort of coincidence?
If you see under the APC administration, when Bukola Saraki became Senate President in 2015, that was an APC administration, and they took the Buhari administration headlong. And I think for us to must give it to the present APC government, because under their watch, we've seen certain legislations that we didn't see previously. Because during the Obasanjo years, remember that Senate presidents were removed almost every month. Look at the spate of Senate presidents we have. The number of Senate presidents we had in our Obasanjo, we could count as much as 4 to 5. But that does not say that when you have a hostile National Assembly, we made more progress as a country. I don't think I agree with that.
So, because you've made mention of the fact that Senator Bukola Saraki was Senate President under Buhari administration, the first term. But you would also agree with me that under that administration, the first tenure of former President Buhari, the Senate President did not have it easy. They tried every possible means to clamp down on him. And for so many Nigerians, that was a time that perhaps we practiced some sort of true democracy in the country.
Yeah, we may have had it under that regime, but also remember that just as Tunde Bakare noted, the second term of Obasanjo, particularly when he wanted a third term, under the Senate presidency of Ken Nnamani, you remember how vocal most of our senators were and other members of the National Assembly that opposed that bid. And that was the comparison Bakare was trying to make when he just opposed that particular National Assembly, with the present one, that if it was during their own time this thing came, it would have been a smooth sail. And I asked myself, I have so much respect for, Pastor Tunde Bakare. Remember, he ran also for the presidency in 2023. I remember in 2022, he made a similar broadcast. And there he was saying that he will be the 16th president, that he saw it in a vision. And he talked about a Nigeria for Nigeria movement. But unfortunately, that movement now morphed into his presidential aspiration. So my question is he going to run again in 2027?
You feel that is the essence of...
it should come out, clean. It should come out clear.
Are you not realizing the fact that he was also talking about the current state of Nigeria? For a lot of people, for across all that line,
it's the first time he is a member of the ruling party. He's a member of the ruling party. He was one of those who projected Buhari's aspiration. Remember in 2011, he ran as his vice presidential candidate. Yeah, I agree. Most of it, if you notice, I have not said what he has said. Is not, germane. Most of the issues he have raised are germane issues, but he's part of the system. He cannot now isolate himself, so to speak.
Part of the system.
And I think
he's not a member of the APC.
With profound respect, he's a member, because if he was not a member of the APC, he would not have run on their platform. He contested against the present president, and of course, he was also...
Yeah, he was also the person.
The issues he has raised are germane, but what are you now doing? It's not just for us to sit as armchair critics, right? You were part of the system. I remember the same Nigerian movement was one of those that became very vocal during the Jonathan years, this issue of removal of subsidy. Yes, subsidy has been removed. What are we going to do in dealing with this present problem of insecurity? What ideas? Though I agree with some of the suggestions he has made that we should sort of decentralize security, right? Because for us to deal with this problem of insecurity, we must engage our local government administrations. We must engage, and I don't think I support state police because it will be liable to abuse. But I prefer we use a community policing model whereby local government chairmen can be part and parcel of this problem and how we can use vigilante and use them responsibly. Remember what happened in Edo State recently, where some persons now resorted to self-help, jungle justice. It is because of the failure of our system that we allow people to have acted in that manner. How come that thing lasted for over 1 hour? The police could not intervene. Unfortunately, the driver ran to the police for safety, but how come those persons were lynched by individuals who felt that the state had failed them woefully? In dealing with this problem of Fulani of herdsmen attacking them in their farms. And I think security is one issue that this present administration must live up to. And I think the time has come for the president to rejig the security architecture of the country.
Apparently, from your own point of view, you believe that the current president has done nothing to improve the security of Nigeria.
I didn't say
like since he became president in 2023, how would you rate the security?
I cannot say that because the problem of insecurity has been there for a very long time. If you notice, this Boko Haram insurgency has been there for over 10 years. And there was a time that parts of the north were taken over by Boko Haram.
But the president also boasted during his campaigns that he was going to put a stop to the incessant security issues we were having at the time.
But I think even if we say he has done, quite a lot in terms of, seeing what, he inherited from the Buhari administration, but Nigerians feel that a whole lot more needs to be done. And I've given you an idea of what can be done by getting this local government chairman, you've given them autonomy, fine. The financial autonomy should now translate to providing leadership. How do they come in? We need to rejig our security architecture. How come these people come into our communities unannounced? Don't they live in homes? Like in Edo, I give you what the governor has done. The anti-kidnapping law has been amended. First, introducing death penalty. Second, if you are the owner of a property that kidnappers live in or had any business to do with, your property will be demolished. So when you have such penalties, and government now put in place, set like in Edo, we also have a task force responsible for ensuring that those involved in kidnapping, their houses are demolished. Government must treat this issue of insecurity, with the kind of attention we give to other very important things, in society. So I think this present government needs to do more. I'm not saying Tinubu has done his best, but we expect him to do a whole lot more.
A whole lot more. Now, Chief Emwanta, if I would like to ask you this question. You're a well-respected lawyer, a former commissioner for information in Edo State, and during your time in Edo State, we saw the manner in which you projected the administration of your then principal. And of course, I've seen a lot of your works within the legal frameworks of legal frameworks and also the judiciary in Nigeria. But then, wholeheartedly, first as a Nigerian, and then as a lawyer, a constitutional lawyer, how would you rate democracy under President Bola Ahmed Tinubu on a scale of 1 to 10?
I think that question, it's a very difficult one to answer.
How?
I will say it's difficult because I'm a player, right? As someone in the field of play, it's like telling me to do a self-examination. I did not expect me to score. I will describe President Tinubu as my principal. You don't expect me to score him below average. So that's why I think whatever answer I give would not be free from bias. But honestly, I think
it's part of the conversation.
I think I will score the president a little above average.
A little above average. So how did you get to that?
Because where he came from was a place where a whole lot had gone so bad that people more or less, because of his background as a pro-democracy champion. Remember the Madeko years? He was one of those powerful voices that insisted that the military must go back to the barracks. He was even in exile. And remember when he came in 1999, he did very well as governor of Lagos State. The trajectory we have today in Lagos is as a result of his own style of leadership. And I can tell you that as we speak, Lagos remains one of the best subnationals across the continent. I've traveled far and wide within the continent. I've gone to Kenya, I've gone to Morocco, and even within our sub-region, I've visited a couple of countries within our sub-region. And I'll say Lagos stands out. And you see the economy of Lagos, where it's blossoming. Their rail system, the use of waterways and what have you. And in terms of infrastructure, I think they've done very well. I've driven recently in Lagos, and I can tell you that the governors they've had after Tinubu left the government in 2007, and we're expecting to bring that in trajectory at the national scale. And that is why, for me, his midterm is just next month. I don't think most of his ministers are performing up to expectation. I think he should sack more than 50% of his ministers. He's a man of action. That is what Nigerians expect. Because many of them, they just feel so relaxed. They are still in their comfort zones. The president cannot be everywhere. I remember we operate a federal system, right? He must set that template for state governors to follow, for local governments, administrations to follow us.
You know, I was excited when you mentioned his role in the Nadeko years and his full advocacy for the military to return to the barracks. And then you also can recall his participation during the Occupy Nigerian protests. He was an ardent supporter of that, to seeing that petrol pump price returns to the old price before it was jacked up under former President Goodluck Jonathan's tenure. And during ENSA, some people said they also had a buy-in and support of the present president. But under the present president, just last year, August, we had the End Bad Governance protest. What happened to that?
The End Bad Governance protest, when you look at some of the persons behind it, the Showaris and others, these are people who are politicians that are lost out in the presidential contest. So when you see people who have political aspiration attack the government in power in the name of protest, I mean, they leave so much of the desire.
You know, I asked the question because when you refer to a Showari, for instance, as a politician at lost, would you also refer to the president as a politician at lost because of his participation in all of this advocacy and civil society?
I think I don't agree when you say the present president can be given that toga of a person at loss, because he has contested different offices in the past. As a senator, he won. As a governor, he won. And the first time around for the office of president.
And he won also. Isn't that enough reason why when Nigerians came out or decided to protest against bad governance in Nigeria in August 2024, he should have also allowed them air their minds?
I think they allowed them to a very large extent, but what the government said was, don't go destroying people's homes. I remember at the National Stadium, they even came out from the place there was a court order limiting them to a particular area. They even went beyond those areas. Nobody stopped them from, But what we didn't want, unlike in the case of the NSAS protest, if you notice, because this one was well managed, during the NSAS protest, you saw how institutions were destroyed. Police stations were burned down. The Oba of Lagos residents, we saw how they went into, even court premises were destroyed. So it is not what we want. The losses, private individuals counted losses, right?
And
no responsible government will allow that to happen.
And according to the human rights, that was an abuse on the civil rights of Nigerians, isn't that? Because I know it's also entrenched in the Constitution. I mean, they have freedom to air their minds, freedom of speech.
I don't think
freedom of association. It's all part of the Constitution. Under the present administration in August last year, did we see that level of freedom of expression?
But my dear sister, you must also know that even the Constitution allows personal expression. No, you have other constitutional issues that I think my own answer can also flow from the Constitution. Because even Section 46 allows for certain derogations, right? For as long as there are laws or policies or government actions that are allowed in a reason, some level of reasonableness must be used in curtailing certain rights. Right? It is where your right ends, that's where another person's right begins from. So because you talk of the utilitarian theory of justice, the greatest happiness or the greatest number. If you know that the activities of ABC will affect that of DEF, and DEF and the majority, it will protect ABC from affecting the rights of DEF.
So is this some sort of coincidence that under the current administration, a lot of Nigerians have found it even more difficult expressing their views?
I think freedom of expression is allowed under this present administration to the extent that there are certain things that I don't agree with. And I'll tell you one of those things. There was a musician, Idris Abdul Karim, who released the video. I don't think it was proper giving it so much of publicity by saying NBC banned this, because people will have means of expressing themselves. People use their Androids more than they watch television.
So that for you is one case amongst many.
Because he said that
where the administration.
He said that as to in response to the president's son, who described his father,
but not in an insultive manner.
He's a musician, and over the years, we've seen people express themselves in different ways.
But he was he was also decrying the deplorable state of things.
If you notice, I'm not saying what he did by releasing that music is bad, but I said the response government gave by now placing the man, I don't think that is acceptable in the democratic setup.
All right, Barrister, just hold your thought. We'll go on a short break and we'll return. The conversation continues.
Ready for change? Join LJE Nigeria, an innovative organization driven by change, growth, and economic advancement. For membership details and registration, visit our website ljenigeria.org or follow us on all social media platforms.
Well, it's still Leadership Dialogue podcast. My guest is Chief Andrea Emwanta. He is the president of Africa Public Interest Lawyers Union and also the former commissioner for information at Edo State. But before we went on that break, you would want to conclude on your thoughts before we went on the break.
Okay, I was trying to say that we must now agree on the model of democracy we want to practice. Because I gave examples of what we have in Ghana, what we had in Morocco, and this present constitution that we operate was given to us by the military in 24. So they called for us to have a summary national conference. I'm renewing that call today because it is only when we now agree on a document that works for us, not the type that was imposed in 1979 by the military. We had a parliamentary system. Military came, they changed everything. But why can't Nigerians agree on a model that works, a model that we can abide with and will take us to our political Eldorado? That's like in Ghana, they went through a process. And even in spite of that process, just recently the president suspended the chief justice of that country. It was greeted with great criticism and all of that. That was a matter in court. So you had that same problem almost everywhere on the continent. We must agree on a document, and when we now have that constitution, the people's constitution, we will not live by that document.
So apparently you're also pushing for a constitutional review.
Of course.
So even though
how many of these imperfections we have in our system?
Yet there's been a lot of call for Nigeria's constitutional review. But then you would agree that sometime in 2014, we had the national confab under the former president Goodluck Jonathan.
Yes.
How far did that go? You would also recall that there was a time the Waste Committee, if you can recall the Waste Committee, there were some things that were being entrenched or perhaps being pushed by the Waste Committee to help better Nigerian system. How did all those things fizzle away?
What was, if you ask me, the plan behind some of all those committees, the 2014 confirm and the rest? It was not really meant to deal with this problem of constitutional amendment. Constitutional review, because...
But we also them to pressure Nigerians.
Most of these alterations we are doing to that document does not cure its imperfections. And I'll tell you what we need. The president must be very deliberate about reforming our system. Can't we now have a regional system? Remember when we had 4 regions, the South, the West, the North, and Midwest. And the issue of resource control was done at that level, 50%. We were better off. We can even tackle this problem of security at that regional plane because we have certain peculiarities that tie us together. Those of us from the South, those of them from the Southwest, those from the North, and just name it. And I think moving forward, that should be one of the legacies the Tinubu administration should give to posterity.
Oh, that's quite interesting. But given your thoughts, would you also ask the Tinubu administration to lessen its system of taxation on Nigerians?
I think it's one area where governments should look into very critically. I'll give you an example. I had a family member who bought a property, tens of millions, and here in the FCT, and the FHA, that's the Federal Housing
Authority,
is asking him to pay close to 12 million, because he needs a building plan. 12 million naira? With that, you can get a land and build a house in Benin. I mean, you can take the house beyond DPC in Benin. So I think those are the kind of charges, those are the kind of rates or fines that Nigerians are battling to. I mean, the cost of living in Nigeria is very high. It is for government to review, just as we have noted, some of these tasks, some of all these government levies, and to make life better for Nigerians.
Well, I'll throw this question at you. The 2024 did not end without some sad news, some deplorable sights, and stories, videos that made a lot of Nigerian families shed tears. I'll give you this instance. In December 2024, we had, which is something that has been ongoing in Nigeria for a while, which is the giving system. But what we saw in December was pocket of situations where people were stampeded, even up to Abuja. Somewhere in Oyo State, we saw that supposed carnival for children that turned into a sad event, where even kids were thrown into venues. Did that not show the level of hunger and poverty in our land?
I think it is for government to help improve the cost of living of Nigerians. And when I say the cost of living, it's not easy raising a family in Nigeria of today. The rate at which food prices increase, not just food prices, commodities generally. And what is responsible for that? We have an exchange rate that is not fixed, very epileptic. We thought that the removal of subsidy would bring some succor. Yes, we may have big refineries like Dangote, but how many of such do we have to really cushion the effects?
But you were also part of those who believed or felt that when you allow the Naira flow, things will be better.
No, I'm coming because our oil receipts, we get 90% of our forest comes from oil receipts. I mean, the crude oil we sell. So how does government now balance this? Because the people responsible for our oil sector, they've not done very well. And I was quite happy when the president relieved the former GMD of the NNPC of his duty. But the person you are brought in, we expect him to do more, right? NNPCL is supposed to be a private company. How private is it? The downstream sector, you said we have liberalized it. How have Nigerians benefited? How is it that governments at the state level are not involved in refining petroleum products? Edo State, we said we have, Obaseki said, he created a refinery, but to date, I don't think they refine petrol. So how has the local economy benefited from it? Some of these things are privately owned. They are not government-owned, quote and unquote, or having real investors come into that area. And I think that is one of the things that the present administration must do, because it is not just enough in saying that we have removed subsidy. How many of these refineries have we encouraged? We had many persons that were willing to come in. What kind of incentives will government give to these people? We have the likes of Otedola and others, as rich as Dangote, but what incentives will government bring on the table?
Well, as we wind down this conversation, what would be your word of advice to the administration of President Bola Ahmed Tinubu as regards leadership?
My advice will not be different from what I've said before. We have a faulty document which we operate with and under. That's the 1999 Constitution. There's need for us to have, may not be a sovereign national conference, but Nigerians have to come together to ask ourselves, can we continue the way we are going? Because the uprising, the likes of Tunde Bakare and others I've spoken about, will just happen. We saw that in the wake of the Arab Spring. Is not what we pray for. So there's need for Nigerians to talk, because the rate at which people, though the governor of Benue said, Father Ali has said the people who killed those 71 persons in Benue are not Nigerians. So who is a Nigerian? The Nigerian question must start by addressing that Nigerian question. It's only when we have that national conference we can address some of these issues. And that conference will not agree on the system of government the model of government we want to operate. Are we going to allow traditional rulers, as we had them during the colonial era or during the time we had regional governments, because we used to have Western regional, houses of chiefs, and so what model of government will work better for us?
Well, most sincerely, thank you for your time with us, Chief Andrew Emwanta. He is the president of the African Public Interest Lawyers Union and a former commissioner for information at Edo State. It's always a pleasure having you join us in conversations like this. And it's another episode, and today we'll bring it to an end. And probably the next time we will be dwelling intricately on the security level or the heightened security situation in Nigeria. It is Leadership Dialogue Podcast on LJE Nigerian TV. Please do like and subscribe on our channels on YouTube, Facebook, as well Instagram and TikTok. The handle is at LJE Nigeria. I am Chikodinaka D. Thank you and bye for now.